Good morning, folks. Welcome to Coffee with Artists. My name is Rachel Wilkins, founder of Conception Arts and art business coach. I am thrilled today to be joined by my wonderful guest, Justin O'Keefe. Justin, welcome to the show.
Hello.
How are you doing this morning? You're in Dallas, right?
I'm actually in Houston.
Oh, you're in Houston now.
Yes.
Okay.
I left Dallas the last time when we saw each other in person. So it's been about 2 years. So that was the last time I was there, and we'll see what happens in the future about going back. So we'll know.
Nice. So you've had a little bit of a hectic morning. Definitely, mine's been a little bit more relaxed. Tell everyone what's going on in Justin O'Keefe world this morning.
It has been nuts. Woke up to a water heater leak in my attic. So had to get that squared away for a little bit. So just dealing with that until my landlord gets here to make some repairs. But like I said, after the past 2 years, I have learned to go with the punches. And I'm kind of glad everything happened the way it has, because it has taught me to be very resilient and how to manage my resources and how to make things happen during difficult times. So it's kind of perfect for what's happening right now in the world, because I was prepared for it, because I had been living. I will just kind of give you the general, like 2 years ago, I left Dallas to come down to Houston because I wanted to expand things for my art. I wanted to put it in a different market. I wanted to, I actually went to law school here in Houston. I'm an attorney and also have a master's in human resources. And I wanted to come back here because Houston is the most diverse city in the nation. So I wanted to be able to have access to clients and also models from all over the world. But the art scene here is a little bit different than what it is in Dallas, and I was not expecting that. So the past 2 years it was tough. It was a big struggle, but here I am, like I said, almost 2 years later, and it's almost like been like a slight little blessing, because all the hoops and the struggle and strife I went through, I learned those lessons. And I want to be able to share those lessons and the advice, just like you guys do with Conception, because sometimes all it takes is just giving somebody a word of encouragement or a little word of advice or a little bit of wisdom that can help them go from a dire situation to something that is a little bit more manageable. And one thing I've always learned to get through stuff like this is one day at a time. Because if you think about everything and the big picture over and over and over, it will wear you down. So just break it down one day at a time, tackle what you can, and keep on going.
I 100% agree with you. My mantra during this entire time right now is keep my head where my feet are. That is all I'm doing. My head cannot go to the what if of, are there ever going to be art shows ever again? Or am I ever going to see my family? Like, we can't, right? We have to one day at a time, which, if nothing else, if this teaches us nothing else, it's a great way for us to remember that, really the day is all we have, right? There's no guarantee of tomorrow. The past is done. Like, we have today. So, if nothing else, if this teaches us to be more present in our own experiences, then that's one good thing that could come out of this. So what does quarantine look for you? What does it look like for you right now?
Oh gosh, so it hasn't been terrible. One of the, I guess, say blessings for me is that I still have, I made sure back in 2013, after I had been practicing law for a bit, I decided to go back to school. And that's when I went back and got my master's in HR. I did it online while I was working full time. And I had no idea why. Well, I knew why I wanted it, but I didn't know how it would play out in the future. Something said, I'm very intuitive. That's how I create a lot of my art. I don't have a plan for what I do. It just happens. So when something tells me I need to do something, I follow it, and it's always led me down the path I'm supposed to go on. So I went back to schoul, and everybody's like, why are you doing that? You're already a lawyer. Why are you? I was like, I don't know. Like, I just did it. And that's how I got into art. Like, I just started doing this 3 years ago. Like, it's something that came to me, and I was supposed to do it. So after I got my master's, I was just like, why did I get this degree? I'm not using it. It was hard to find a job in that field because for some reason, people in HR hate lawyers. They're like terrified of them because we see things differently. But I'm like, it works perfectly. I see the legal and I see the HR side. But anyway, and I would say about December of last year, I got an email from a company saying, hey, we're doing this huge project we need a lot of attorneys for, but we really want you because you have a master's in HR and it's an in-house position with a large international bank, and you're going to be doing employee investigations in-house. And it's fully remote, so you will work completely from home and you will make very good money. And I was like, I think that might work for me. So I took that gig. I started in January. I've been working from home since January.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know. So when everything happened, for me, it hasn't really been a big change for me. I've been at home. So I get to spend time with my dogs, my 2 little Frenchies, because I hated leaving them every day because when they come home and I would be so tired, they would be like, we need attention, we need to play. And I'm just like, I can't do this, I'm so tired. So literally I sit at my, I turned my dining room into my, literally it's my war zone now. So it's literally, I have multiple computers. I got one for art and for one project I'm working on. I got a whole nother setup for another project I'm working on. And then they sit at the window over here and look out and bark at squirrels all day. So they have a good time.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So for anyone watching, right before we jumped onto this live broadcast, Justin and I just had a love fest with our Frenchies. I have a Frenchie, 6-month-old Frenchie called Frank, and Justin, you have...
I have 2 Frenchies. My first one, her name is Gia. She's the little diva. She runs the house. She will be 6 next month. And then my other one, Jackson, he was actually, he just turned 6 last month in March. So they're only like about 60 days apart. And Jackson was actually born in Ukraine and was flown over here. And I ended up getting him when he was a year old from a girl who did not want him because she didn't like what color he was.
Oh my God. Come on, people.
I was like, why did you buy this super expensive dog? And she was like, he doesn't take care of himself. He's not like a cat. And she literally, for 2 months, he went from home to home. He had no home. He was in a crate the size of his body. So literally he was just like this the whole time. And he had never been to the vet. He had never been to a dog park. So when I took him to the dog park for the first time, he was so out of shape, I had to carry him.
Oh, God.
So I made sure when I got him, I gave him, because everything I've gone through, especially like I said, the last couple of years, people were like, are you going to get rid of your dogs? I was like, no. You don't get rid of your family because times are tough. And I made it work. And it was tough. There are certain times I had to say, they need food. They have to go get their, medical attention taken care of. Am I going to be able to pay for that? Or do I have to worry about a bill? And sometimes it came down to that. And this is what a lot of people are living right now. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I've been there. And when you have to decide about your necessities compared to like things that you really need in life, it's like, can I afford to pay this bill today? Or can I really need to put food on the table? Or I got to have electricity. And you're working out deals constantly and it's exhausting. But I will let people know there is light on the other side. Like, you will get through it. You just have to stay hopeful. You have to stay faithful to what you are doing. And you have to learn to readjust your life to the circumstances. Because a lot of people are so used to living life and thinking, this is what I need to do. This is what defines me. And a lot of times, especially right now, a lot of people are having time for self-reflection. And you're starting to see, do I really need this? Is this really a necessity? And we've been so comfortable for so long in our society. Now we're starting to see the real differences between necessities and things that are actually wants that we made into necessities. We actually really don't need them.
I saw something, and I'm guilty of sharing this as well. It was like one of those things where it said, Einstein did this in a month, and this person wrote this novel. And, if you don't write that book or make that painting during this time, then you didn't lack time, you lacked discipline. Right. And I kind of shared something like that along those lines, because for me, I was like, this is going to be a time where I'm going to write that book that I've been talking about. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And the reality is, like, we are dealing with a very stressful situation. Like, yes, we are. Most of us, those who are fortunate enough to be home, we are safe. We've got a roof over our head. We've got food in the refrigerator. But there's this just air of uncertainty. and it feels unsettling. And I think anyone who's, putting pressure on themselves out there to do this and do that, and, create all these projects, like you said, it's just a matter of keeping one day at a time, do the best that you can during this stressful situation.
And to breathe.
And to
do that. Like, we literally bring so much stress upon ourselves, and we don't realize that we are the main factor of it. And I literally have to catch myself sometimes. I'm like, Justin, is it really that serious? And I literally take a step back, because I try to be very logical, because I use my emotion for my art. And then when I step into the legal HR world, I'm very logical. So when I approach my life, I try to do it between a balance of logic and emotion. So, excuse me, when I look at stuff, I'm like, all right, take a step back. Is this really important? And you're just like, you know what? It's not. It can wait. And it goes back to the whole one day at a time. Just breathe, take your time.
Well, let's talk about that left brain, right brain, because that's something I was really excited to talk to you about. But before we do you have a warm beverage? Do you have a coffee or some kind of something?
Coffee and water. Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, cheers. And I hope everybody out there has a good beverage of some form, whatever time of day it is. We won't judge if there's alcohol in your cup. Right.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm drinking black
coffee. Daily occurrence now.
A very boring cup this morning, but so let's talk. So you really are kind of an anomaly in the art world, in that you are an attorney by profession, by day, and also a creative. So you have that left brain, right brain that so many of us do not have.
Yeah.
So talk to me about, I read when I was doing a little bit of research that you took up art during your studies, during your preparation for the bar or for the LSATs. So tell us how that even came about.
So back in 2007, I started law school. I had always wanted to be an attorney since I was a kid. I think it was 1996. I was in 6th grade, and I told my mom, I was like, I want to help people, so I'm going to be a lawyer, So my whole life had been based upon that plan. Everything I did, making sure my grades are right, just so I can get into law school. Got into law school, was super excited. And then my first semester, I was like, is this really for me? Because it is the biggest adjustment. Because law school is, unless you go to some type of professional program, it is the hardest thing to explain to people. It is the most mentally taxing and physically stressful thing you will ever go through. I will say this. I went into law school with an afro. I am bald now. I will say, I started to lose my hair during law school because of the stress. And my first semester, I called my mom and I was like, I don't know if this is for me. And she was like, all right, you need to make a decision, because if this isn't for you, you need to get out now, because you don't need to waste that money.
Right.
And you need to figure out what you're going to do. Now, if it is for you, you need to stick it out and you need to make sure you see it through, but you need to make a decision. So I said, okay. So I decided, I was like, you know what? I've set my whole life up for this. This is what I'm going to do. I'm already in it. I got in, so let me make it happen. So I would say in November of 2007, I had hit a point, because literally in law school, all you do is study and go to class like every day. You wake up probably at 6 a.m. so you could be at class at 8. And before that, you have to study, and then you go to class until about 5 or 6, and then you study until about 1 or 2 in the morning. And this is every day. Weekends were study. So because at my law school, we all were graded on a curve. So if you don't reach a certain GPA throughout your first year, you get kicked out. So if you have to have a minimum of a 2.0, and for me, I was like, I had all A's, this, that, and the third. I was valedictorian in high school. But once you get the cream of the crop with the cream of the crop, it is the biggest competition you will ever see in your life. And it was tough for me, because I had to learn how to study. I was one who could sit in class and I could absorb information and I could remember it and process it. I never had to really sit down with a book and just really study and to process information. So I had to learn how to do that. And it was tough for me my first year. So I walked into well, take it back a little bit. I've always loved photography. When I worked at summer camps, I did photography. That's where I got to play with my first DSLR. And also when I was in college, I was yearbook editor. I didn't get to take as many pictures, but I got to create the content. So I love that. So I was like, you know what? I love doing that. Let me go and start to, make some art. And I walked into Best Buy and I bought myself a Canon Rebel XTI. I had a credit card at the time and I was like, I am going to swipe. I spent my little $800 and I had my beginner camera and I taught myself photography. So I was a natural light photographer. So anything that I have done, I teach myself. So I have the ability to go learn something and I will go find the information and then I will train myself to become an expert at it. So that's how I learned photography. I had no one to teach me. I learned all by trial and error. And then about 3 years ago is when I started studio photography. Same thing. I rented a studio, played around, fell in love with it. And actually, that story, remind me to tell you about that story in about 10 minutes because that one's really important and it gives hope. And that's something we need right now in this world. I don't want people to realize where my journey came from. But I started with photography and that was my stress reliever. So I got to the point where I started to paint on people, and then take pictures. So I started to evolve again.
And this was during law school, this was happening?
After law school, I graduated.
Okay.
So during law school, I just took natural light photography pictures.
Gotcha.
People were like, oh my God, I was class historian. I was historian for almost every organization. I did a study abroad my first year of law school. I lived in London for 3 months, and every weekend we went to a different country. So I got to go, I traveled with my camera and I went all over Europe taking pictures and I loved it. I literally would go sit on a double-decker bus in London and just ride around London and I would just take pictures, get off when I wanted to. And I actually got published. My first image I took in Brussels at this beautiful church. It was 9 o'clock at night and that's when the sun was setting. You have this beautiful steeple and then you have this beautiful, just orange background where the sun is coming down and you just have this amazing street shot. And the American Bar Association Student Journal published that for me.
That's awesome.
To write about my experience and my study abroad. And it was such a great experience because I got to not only during law school do the legal piece, but also still do my photography, which helped me get me through law school because I had to have that mental balance because I just couldn't be logic all the time. It had to have some type of creative outlet.
So let me ask you, because I think a lot of people do struggle with actually owning and saying, I'm an artist, right? Like that's a hard thing. I struggled with it myself for a long time. So when you were, going through your studies and you were traveling abroad, and it sounds like you were using the photography as kind of an outlet from the taxing work of studying and working towards your law degree. Did you feel like you were an artist at that point? Is that something that came later?
I didn't. It was so weird. It just felt like it was something I was doing as a hobby instead of being really an artist. I don't think I really considered myself an artist until I started to do more of the body art and the photography together, because in my mind, I started to take it a little bit more seriously because I started to get a lot more attention. And I was just like, they're like, oh my God, your stuff is so great. And I was like, what? I'm just making stuff. Like it's no, and they were like, no, this is really good. And I was like, oh, I guess I am an artist. Like it kind of clicked over time. But when it started off, it was just like, this is something I love to do. And it was for me.
Right.
So it wasn't something, I would love to take pictures for people, if they needed headshots or family portraits or something like that, I would do it because I was like, this is cool. And it just got me to not think about the law for a second. And now that I've grown into being what we would consider an artist, it has just evolved completely. And to the point of where within the next year, because I'm looking to buy a home, and I'm more likely, I might even build something. Like in Texas, we call them barn dominiums. So it's like a big old, it's not a barn, but it's like a house that has a barn on the has a barn shell, but they're customizable. So you can literally, I'm going to build in my art studio and my photography studio into the house. So that way I have a dedicated space And then I'm also a dancer. I used to dance for the Dallas Mavericks.
What?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. I used to dance. We have a all men's NBA dance team called the Mav Maniacs. I danced for them for a season, and I used to teach Zumba. I've been dancing since I was a kid, and I'm going to build a dance studio. So that's another piece of the art. I love to dance. I've choreographed music videos, all kinds of stuff, and I'm a part of the Houston Show Choir here. So I get to perform also. I love it.
So you have the most eclectic resume I've seen.
Like I said, whenever I want to learn something, I teach myself. And
I want to know. First of all, how long have you been practicing law now?
Gosh. So I got licensed. I graduated in May of 2010. Okay. So I'm coming up on my 10-year anniversary this year. And I took the bar in July of 2010, and I passed the first time. So I will be licensed come the 5th of November of 2020, 10 years.
Wow. And what kind of law is it that you practice?
I mainly do, so this is funny. I do, with my HR, I do labor and employment. And then also I do, I advise a lot of artists and creatives. Okay. So I help them because, like you said, I have the right brain and the left brain, so I see from both sides. So I help a lot of them with contracts. I help a lot of them with understanding how businesses needs to be set up, how to protect your business, how to protect your copyrights, how to protect your work. I can't tell you how many people have used my work illegally, and I have gone after them because
you don't know who you're messing with.
And I'm like, that's really not smart. And I've had people literally tell me, that's not what the law is. And I was like, okay, you're telling me I don't know what the law is. And this is what I specialize in. So mainly art and photography law, copyright, stuff like that. A lot of people just don't know. Right. And I want to make sure that other artists know how to protect their work because, like I said, people will profit off of your work. And there's exceptions to everything. But you have to make sure that what you're doing, because that's something you created with your own hands. And this is why I try to explain to people, how would you feel if somebody just came in, took something that you created and then used it to make money off of without your permission? I was just like, what is that? Who does that? That's so weird to me, but people do it. And you have to make sure that you protect your content.
I'm going to ask you, you're the expert here. You know, my wife is an attorney as well, so I often kind of quiz her for these questions. But, you know, it feels very much like the law hasn't quite caught up with where we are right now in terms of what people are doing online with other people's artwork. Like, it really is like the wild, wild west out there.
Yep.
I think about, there was an artist who was at one of the major shows. I want to say it was like Freeze or some big event. And their entire booth was images that they had basically screen grabbed of regular folks' Instagram Instagram pictures, so Instagram posts, and they'd blown them up and they were selling them for like $25,000. Now, when you think about intellectual property, right? First and foremost, first of all, who's paying for those pieces is my question. Like, why are you paying for a blown up picture of somebody else's Instagram? Because it wasn't even art. But how do you even begin to, even pursue legal action against people like that?
It is hard. The federal law has certain protections, but here's the thing, and this is what a lot of people don't understand. You gotta have a lot of money to litigate. A lot of money. And a lot of times it's not worth it. And the people who take advantage of artists, they know that. Yep. They know that you don't have the money to come after them because they're going to make sure they're like, oh, they sue me, whatever, because you're going to have to spend all the money. And even if you do win in court, you can't get blood from a turnip. So if they don't have anything, you just spent all this money to say you were right per se, but you don't get anything from it. So people take advantage of it. And like you said, the law has not caught up. Now, there are a few things that the law is trying to do. They're trying to process things where you make more of these copyright infringements, more of what we would be processed more in the JP courts. So that way you can get a little bit more, you can expedite things. So that way you don't have to, because as it is right now, everything when it comes to copyright and intellectual property has to go through a federal court. So Me, this is something even I have to work on. I have to go get another law license to even go practice in federal court. It's not too difficult and I can do it, but it's the time I have to invest into it. Then I have to go get the money to file the said lawsuit. Then I have to go through discovery to prepare my case. Then I have to go in and argue the case in federal court. Mm-hmm. Then I have to win. And if I do win and get a judgment against someone, if they don't have any assets, because especially here in Texas, I can't come after their home because it's a homestead. Any property that's considered a necessity, I can't go after. If they've declared bankruptcy, good luck trying to get anything, because most people do that. Yep. Especially if you're protected under an LLC, most people will just close the business and open up a brand new one under a different LLC and do the same thing.
Yep.
So it's hard because we have no real protection. So this is what I've advised, and this is what I do with a lot. Sorry, I keep touching my eye because I have this little piece of glitter because I use a lot of glitter in my stuff.
Only you could say I have this little
piece of glitter. Little piece of glitter is like on my eye. So
listen, anyone out there is watching or listening or watching, don't be deceived by how Justin is dressed very plainly and in black today, because this guy is all about the glitter and the color. So that's why he's got some glitter issues.
Yeah. Typically I dress just in black and white, like most artists. It's like, right. I don't care what I look. It's just like, leave all the glam and all that to my art.
Yep.
Keep it simple. So,
right. So
no, but this is what I tell most artists. You need to make it a contract law issue. So when you go in with your clients from the beginning, like every model who works with me or every client, they fill out an application because I make it simple. I want them to know from the jump, this is how I work. This is what I expect from you. And then they get to decide what type of work they do with me. So they get to select. So that way, when we step into the studio, I already have literally a document that says, this is what we're doing. This is what we've agreed to. There's no ambiguity. And everybody knows exactly what's happening. And I also set the standards for me. And this is something I've learned the past couple of years too. Every person and every business owner should have their core values set up in place so that whenever anyone does business with you or comes into contact with you, they know exactly what you stand for. And for me, those are loyalty, honor, respect, honesty, and humility. And I tell people, if you don't have those, I'm sorry, we're just not a good fit to work together. Yeah. And you would think, oh, those are the basics. That's no big deal. I've literally had people tell me, I'm sorry, I can't work with you because I'm not in alignment with your core values.
Bye-bye.
But here's the thing. It saved me the stress and the strife of dealing, because I've dealt with some really bad people. And there's art that I have made that will never see the light of day, because it's like making a child with someone you really don't care for and you're stuck with it for the rest of your life. It's just, for me, it's like it just never sees the light of day, because I cannot promote art that I feel a certain type of way about, because that person is not, they don't embody the core values, and it's all about how you treat people. And that's so important to me. So if you're going around causing a lot of drama, a lot of strife, this, that, and the third, I just can't do it. I will pull the art in a heartbeat and it will never see the light of day, because I just can't be associated with it.
I can tell you that I have the reverse of exactly what you're talking about. I purchased a lot of art over the years. Obviously, it's almost impossible for me to go to one of our shows and not buy at least something. I've cut myself off now because there's no room in my 50 apartment. But there's certain pieces that I've bought over the years, and obviously not mentioning any names, but that particular artist has done something or acted in a certain way that has just really turned me sour.
Yep. And
I cannot leave that piece of art hanging, because even though I love the piece, I'm like, no, never gonna look at it.
And this is what I tell people. People will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that is because this is how my art is based off. It's about that emotional response. When someone first looks at your art and they're just like, whoa, I wanted to hit them and make them think, and I want to make them feel something. Because when I create my art, I literally go into this whole mindset of like, I just create, I just flow, I make my stuff happen because this is how it made me feel when I was doing it. So I want people to feel something. I just don't want to take pictures just because I can take pictures, or paint somebody just because, or make a piece just because I can. I want it to start a conversation, and I want people from different backgrounds, from different religions, from different anything, to all come to that piece and say, this is how this makes me feel, and to start those conversations, especially in our society right now where we're so polarized and so divisive. Literally, two people can come look at this portrait right behind me and have two different reactions, but it unites them and it starts that conversation so that they can actually realize, oh, we're a lot more in common and a lot more alike than we are different. And then people start to focus on the similarities, and then the differences aren't that important anymore. And that's how you build a community. That's how you build relationships. And what I'm trying to do with my art, I've always known that what I'm doing, it may not have immediate payback or payoff, this and the third, and I don't care. I can't tell you how much money and time I've invested into this, but I'm doing this to build a legacy, because I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me and said, you've inspired me to do this in my life, or you've inspired me to make art, or you've inspired me just to do something different or to see the world differently. And that's what I want to do. That's why I'm so passionate about this, because I have a medium, a vehicle to take people out of the everyday strife and arguments and being on social media, being nasty to each other, and to just take them back to basically reset them to being just good human beings and realizing there's so much more to me than what I am actually doing and what society says I have to be. And I can actually move forward and be so much more than what I am today, but it's on me to move it forward.
So I want to go way back. So tell me about growing up. Where did you grow up? What was your experience like?
For me,
your challenges. Tell me a little about that.
So I was born in a small little town in East Texas called Jefferson. Jefferson, Texas is in the northeast part of the state. It sits on the border of Texas and Louisiana. We're probably about 45 minutes west of Shreveport. So my family is all over there. Grew up, was born there. And then there's a little town south of there, 15 minutes, called Marshall, Texas. So a lot of people, Marshall used to, back in the day, used to be the capital of the state of Missouri. So, yeah. So and then Jefferson is the bed and breakfast capital of the state of Texas and the antique capital. So you go down there, it's bed and breakfast, antiques, everything. That's my little town. My grandparents they were teachers there. They're retired. So everybody knows my family. It's a quaint little place. And when I go back home, it's good to be in the quiet because it's different than living in the big city. Grew up there until I was about, I would say, first grade. And then my mom, she was a single mother. So she was a nurse, and she moved us to Dallas. And we were in school, this, that, and the third. And then my sister and I, let me take it back to this. My grandparents, like I said, they were both teachers. They both got their master's degree in education, and they were the standard. They set that for our family. They wanted to make sure that education was paramount, and that everything that we all did, because my aunts and uncles, they're all teachers and administrators. My mom was the wild one. She became the nurse, and then she invested in us big time. And mom was, like I said, single mom. She worked 2 jobs. She worked overnight, 11 to 7 at a nursing home. She would get home at 7 a.m. She would come pick us up, drop us off at school. And then she would work her day job as a home health nurse. And then she would come pick us up at 3. We would have sports practices, this, that, and the third. We did that. We went home. She cooked dinner. She made sure we did our homework. She sat down with us and we did our homework. She made sure that we were learning. She taught us cursive writing before we even learned it in school. She made sure to hammer those things into us. And then also we got to the point where we were in gifted and talented programs. And my mom was like, this is not enough for my children. And our principal at our school in Dallas said, he was like, there's nothing else I can do for you. So you either take it or leave it. And my mom said, I'm leaving it. And my first day of 4th grade, my mom walks into class after dropping me off an hour before. And she goes, get your stuff, we're leaving. I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, you're not going to school here anymore. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, I just started like an hour. She was like, get your stuff. And she goes, I'm putting you in private school. And I was like, I was like, huh? And she was like, I want the best for you. She goes, this is what my parents, they gave me the best, and this is how they trained me. And she goes, I'm making sure I'm investing in my children. So that's why she worked 2 jobs. And all the way through high school, she kept us in private school because she was like, I want you both to have the best lives, and I want to make sure I'm giving you the best ability to have them. And my sister, and that was one of the requirements. Do not bring anything less than a B. If I got a B, I got the look. So my sister and I both graduated valedictorians of our class in high school. Wow. My sister went on to Prairie View A&M University, and she had a full ride. She went to medical school with a full ride, and my sister now practices medicine in Tyler. She has 2 little girls and a husband who's an architect and also finishing up seminary. He's about to be a pastor also. Then I went on to law school, went back to East Texas Baptist University. I worked for the football team as a videographer for my first year because I played football in high school. And I can't tell you all the stuff I did in high school. I'm all over the place, like you said before. And then I became a cheerleader. So I was a college cheerleader.
Come on.
Yeah.
You're pulling these things out of your hat. Come on. What else?
That's why I dance with the map. I'm used to perform. I'm a performer. Like you.
Go ahead.
And we went on to do that. So my mom busted her butt to make sure we had the best lives. And that's right now, my sister and I are both in amazing places, and we're making sure. That's the reason why these next few years are so important to me, because I want to make sure. My mom's still a nurse. She still does healthcare down in East Texas. She loves it, but I want to make sure mom is taken care of because she sacrificed so much for us growing up. Because I'm not going to do this morning. So it was tough. And we made it.
Got it out.
But
shows what a profound effect that your mother has had on you. You know, I see in the comments here, Heather McCarty. Hi, Heather. Fears.
I'm crying out to you.
Hey, let it out. It's a real moment, you know.
I guess with everything that's happened right now, it was just one of those kind of like trigger moments. So. But yeah, I love my mother. It's been tough, but she has given so much to make sure that my sister and I have had everything that we need in our lives. And we never wanted for anything. And but she taught us how to work. And that's the reason why I've been so successful, because I know the value of hard work. My grandparents did that, and they taught my mom that. And my mom has taught it to us. We understand the value of investing in something, and it may not be an immediate payoff, but when it does happen, that's the reason why right now I'm okay, because I invested hard the last 2 years and it was tough, but I'm in a good place right now because I made those investments. And I get that. And you're not going to have immediate gratification and where you want to be right now, but if you keep working at it, eventually it will pay off. You just got to keep going. And that's what I'm literally telling myself with my art. It's not where I want it to be, but I know one day it will be because I'm investing so much into it.
And by the sounds of it, Justin, you know, your mother has not only, you know, taught you how to be pragmatic and, you know, have great work ethic, but she's, you know, taught you how to be a good emotional person. And it sounds like there's generations of that going back to your grandparents, that they just wanted the best for you. So you want the best for yourself.
And
let's just have a big shout out to your mom right now. Yes, Mama, if you're watching, I tell you, mothers are amazing. Single mothers, forget about it.
Yeah.
You single moms out there are amazing. You're doing God's work, seriously. And, you know, look at the impact you've had on this wonderful human being right here. And, you know, I had a mother who struggled to, you know, work different jobs to put me through private school as well. You know, we didn't have a lot of money growing up, and I can relate to that. And I watched her work hard, you know, every single day, and then, you know, be home and put dinner on the table. So I can relate to that. But the fact that your mother was doing this alone, and just, continue to be your biggest advocate and tell you that, mediocre was not good enough.
Oh, it was never good enough. And that's something in my art, and I will even say that. I don't know if you can see this. It says anti-mediocre.
No way!
And that's one of my slogans because it's something that was never tolerated in how I grew up. And I'm not telling people that, it's not okay to be average or not just this, that, and the third. But you have to understand when you grow up in a house, in a home, in an environment where you are trained each and every day to see the best in yourself and to push yourself to be the best. When you fall short, I would tear myself apart because I would be like, what am I missing? What is stopping me from being better? And even to this day, this is how I analyze my life. And I'm always learning. And that's something my grandparents are big, like I said, they're teachers. They always want to make sure you're taking in information, processing it, and making yourself more valuable. You should be growing. So that's the reason why every day I'm always doing something to grow. I'm always teaching myself, learning something new, developing something because this is what I'm supposed to do. And it's not about what car you drive or what house you have, this, that, and the third. Money will come and go, and God knows I know. I have lived it. But what somebody can never take away from you is the knowledge that you have and the skills that you have. So that's what I use to enrich myself, to make myself better every day.
And people can do that today really without a lot of resources. I mean, just with an internet connection.
Mm-hmm.
So much out there that we can absorb to, expand our thinking and our knowledge and our skills.
But you have to be able to discern, and this is something that a lot of people aren't understanding, between true information and stuff that is just propaganda or used to incite fear. Right. And that's where you have to be smart about being able to look at information and tell, is this a scholarly source? Has this been researched? Where's the proof? Where's the evidence? And that's something that I'll always ask, especially on my personal Facebook page. People are like, well, this is how I feel. That's great. Well, where's the proof? Give me your argument. Build out an argument for me, because you're trying to convince me. And I need to make sure that what you're saying has been cited, it has been proven, it has been a theory that can be reproduced. Show me the evidence. So that's why I always approach things from that point of view. And a lot of people are like, well, I just heard it from someone. No, quit taking people's word for face value. Show me the proof. And once I see the proof, then I'm able to say, okay, you know what? And then I'll try it myself and I'll try to repeat it. And then once I'm able to do that, I'm just like, oh, this is actually right. And that way I can verify it, because if I'm going to share something, I have to believe it and I have to be able to prove it. And that's the argument, because that's the law school kicking in.
I was going to say, that's the lawyer. I've tried to have an argument with my wife, who's a lawyer, and it's very complicated. Yeah. I'm like, wait, did I do this? I guess I'm doing the dishes.
And then they convince you that you are wrong, and you're like, oh, well,
I'm just not even going to argue. You win. So I totally get that, but it's interesting that you brought that up, because I think about now, like the extreme polarization, right? We probably won't get into politics, but let's be real about how it's affecting the just families, even communities, friends. There's friendships that have broken down over disagreements, political disagreements. Like how do you even navigate that as a creative and as an attorney?
So this is what I always tell people. If you can prove it, and it's something, like I said, you can show me and it can be proven, I will instantly run with it. But this is something I also tell people, because I always revert and reset to my core values. If your politics, religion, whatever requires you to be a terrible person, I can't get down with it. I just won't, because I'm not going to change how I treat people, because when it comes down to it, the foundation for me is respect. I will have a discussion with anyone. I will talk to anyone, but it has to be done with the foundation of respect. We don't know how to communicate anymore. We don't understand how to be respectful. You can still feel a certain way and have a conversation, My best friend who lives in Beaumont, he's actually been to, he's like my right-hand man. Whenever I go to a show, he's there to help me set up this, that, and the third. We could not be more polar opposite. He is the straightest, whitest, countryest boy you will ever see. And some of the stuff, I'm just like, Brent, like, what are you thinking? How did you come to that conclusion? Well, I heard, no. So we will literally sit down and we actually have conversations. And we have such a relationship. Like, he's like my brother, his mom, their family, they all call me like their son. When we go and have these conversations, he's like, well, can you explain this to me? Instead of it being an accusation, like, your people do this, or you guys, or you this, that, and the third, putting a label on something. He was like, can you understand or explain something to the point of where I can comprehend it? And then I will start the conversation and be like, okay, so from my point of view, this is how this comes off to us. And this is the reason why, due to our background, due to our experiences, due to culture. There's a lot of things that people don't understand. Also, if you don't know, my undergrad degree is in sociology. I love to study people in groups. So that's how I analyze stuff. I approach things from the big picture. So when I go into that, and then he'll be like, oh, I haven't thought about it from that way, because this is what my background is like, and then this is what my culture is like, and this is how I grew up. So now that we have those conversations, we can actually understand we're a lot more alike. We just had different experiences that led us upon to different paths. So once people start to see that and they realize, you know what, this is actually why they think that way, and this is how it got to that point, and you can actually think through it and have that conversation. That's the reason why we're best friends. Like, it's not easy, like any relationship that you're in with somebody, whether it be a friendship, romantic, whatever, you're gonna have ups and downs, but you have to be able to communicate so you can get past those problems and understand. And once you understand and have those lessons, that's how you grow. So when you have those experiences again, that's where wisdom kicks in. And then you're able to understand and communicate effectively because you've already learned that lesson. And once I've learned,
we're not doing that, though. We're not communicating.
No, because we don't use wisdom. Once you learn a lesson, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, will continue to teach you that lesson until you learn it. And that's why a lot of people keep saying, I keep struggling with this. Well, what are you learning? What aren't you processing? And this is what I've learned too. It's literally the definition of insanity when you keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So if you keep doing the same thing and you keep having the same result, you're just like, well, what's happening? You might want to change something because it's an experiment. Change something different to get a different outcome.
So for anyone who's joining us, I see a couple of comments here. For some reason, Justin, your name is not showing up on the screen. I'm not sure. There you go. It's on Justin O'Keefe. So Justin and I are here for coffee with artists this morning. My coffee is now freezing cold because I've been on a soapbox for a while. But we've talked about everything apart from art, but that seems to be the way these sessions are going. So we're just going to roll with it. We will talk about art a little in a second. But if anyone has any questions for Justin, please jump in. There is quite a few comments. Hi, Suzanne. Hi, Heather. Hi, Ray.
Hey,
and Barry, John. Ton of people here this morning. This is awesome. Good to see everybody. So we will take some questions for Justin at the end. I had a similar experience to what you're talking about. I was actually doing some volunteer work. My wife and I were volunteering at this was an animal rescue place, and it was up in the country towards Pennsylvania. And the person who ran this establishment was extremely fond of somebody who's in the White House right now. And obviously my wife and I are much more liberal leaning people. And side note, anyone who's in the LGBTQ community that is on that other side blows my mind, but that's a whole different thing to unpack. So anyway, so we would have these conversations, and at first it was very like polarized. It was both sides kind of repeating the talking points that you
see. Same thing you hear on the news, and they just repeat.
Right.
Yes.
I was too. I was, but he's grabbing people by the whatever, and and then it was but her emails.
Back and forth.
Right. When we broke it down and when we actually sat and had conversations about what was important to each of us, it was family, it was healthcare, it was security. It was the same issues. It's the same stuff. Like, if we just get rid of all that noise that they want us to be a part of, they want us to be mad at each other, because when we're mad at each other, we're easier to manipulate, right, as a society.
And we ignore the things that are actually really happening that we should really be paying attention to. Yep. Like, did you see the other day, 800 million went missing from the Pentagon? They have no idea where it happened. Mm. And just, this has happened before. It happened in 2001. Money just goes missing, and then we get distracted and we never ask where our taxpayer money went. Mm. And then when we need funds, like we do now, it's like, we don't know how to make it happen, but we have money for everything else. But yeah, whatever. We're not. That's just the logic in my, I'm just like, from a business point of view, I'm just like, why wouldn't you? It's like, we're considered the customers. Why wouldn't we make sure that the customers are taken care of? Mm-hmm. And then we just do the basics. All this extra stuff is not it's not necessary. Mm-hmm. Run it like it's supposed to be. Make sure that people are taken care of, because if we're paying for something, we should be getting something. But a lot of people feel like they're not getting it, and that's why people are angry. Yep. And they're scared. And that's the biggest thing throughout history. If you look throughout, you can study everything. And the biggest thing that someone will always use to make people do what they want to do is fear. And fear is the biggest tool you can use to manipulate people. And once people start to get scared, they start to compromise the things that they typically would not do, or their foundation or their morals. Because a lot of things that I'm seeing now is the thing we call conditional morality. People are willing to let things go that typically, if it was done to them personally, or somebody they knew, or their family, or somebody, they would say, oh no, that's terrible. I would never associate. But because this person's in power, or they're in this and the third, they're letting stuff go because, you know what? It's okay. I'm all right with that, because this else is getting done. But I'm like, but somebody else is being hurt. And if it was you who's being hurt, you would be screaming high murder because I was hurt. But and then you have other people who be like, oh, it's not me, so I'm not going to worry about it. Yeah. I don't like to live life like that, because it creates such a terrible environment.
I know this is being very political, but I'm going to say it. You know, when I think about the people who are the pro-lifers, but they're okay with those children in cages at the border.
And see, that's another condition. And that's things that people, we just have to work out. Mm-hmm. Because I tell people, and this is how I approach everything, I put myself in those shoes. How would I feel if that was me? How would I feel if that was my children or my family? I would be terrified. And I would do everything in my power to fight to make sure that we were in a great situation, or we were not in it, because it's not worth it. It's terrifying. I can imagine living life like that. And I know some amazing attorneys who are colleagues I went to law school with who are fighting those battles every day. And they say it's tough because you have somebody, and that's the reason why I went to law school. I wanted to be able to help people who didn't have a voice and who could not help themselves. And it's tough, because you get attached emotionally to these cases and to these people. And sometimes the results aren't what you wanted, because that's not how the cookie crumbled that day. But you come to reconcile it, because you're like, you know what? I did the best that I could do, and I'm still going to keep fighting the good fight. You take that hit and you keep going.
So something else I wanted to share with you that happened, and this really goes back to the divisiveness that goes on right now between, you know, whether it's class, race, sexuality, gender, whatever it is. Sorry, if you hear noise in the background, folks, Frank is snoring up a storm.
You're snoring too.
We both have French bulldogs, so we both have snoring and other suspect noises coming from background. Really quite loud though, so we do apologize. So Facebook we're on Facebook right now, but it is so much terrible. I think we won't really know the true effects of it until, you know, further down the line. But I had an experience. I was in St. Louis and I was in an Uber. And my Uber driver was an African-American woman. She was wonderful. And we got into a situation where she took a wrong turn and we ended up in a parking lot. She turned around to drive right back out of the parking lot. And the attendant, who was a middle-aged white guy, said, no, you need to pay the fee. And she was like, I just took a wrong turn in and I wanted to leave. And he was like, no. Now, should be noted, this car had blacked out windows, the car that we were in. So this guy is like, just will not take no for an answer. So I wind down the window. I'm like, what is the problem? Like, why are you not letting us through? And within a couple of minutes, he let us through. And so I start talking to her in the car. I'm like, that was really messed up. Like, does that happen frequently? And this was in St. Louis. And she said, all the time. I don't need to explain this to you, obviously. Mm-hmm. What she shared with me after that fact was something that had been happening on Facebook, where she had been invited to certain Facebook groups by people that she knew. And now, looking back, even at that point, she said, it's very obvious to me that these were now bots or some kind of Russian or wherever trying to polarize the Black community against the white community even more. They were basically, there was, I guess, some kind of march coming up in St. Louis that weekend. Mm-hmm. That in that Facebook group that was like African Americans of St. Louis or whatever, they were inciting folks to go out and riot and naming the Black-owned businesses and telling them to avoid those businesses. This is coming from some call center or some crazy place in the Ukraine. This is not coming from the community. And this is the shit that's happening on like the underbelly of what we're dealing with online, right? Have you seen anything like that? Have you experienced anything like that? What's been your
Facebook?
I know we probably need another hour for this conversation, but I'd be interested to know.
Necessary evil. Let me say this. I am what we consider a millennial. When I was in college is when Facebook actually first came out. So it was about 2005. I was one of the first original people at my university, the first 5 people to have Facebook. So Facebook was completely different back then. I've been on Facebook, gosh, what has it been, 15 years now? So I have seen it evolve. I have seen it change. I have seen everything that's happened. Because when you first got Facebook, you had to have a .edu address. You had to be a college student. Right. No one else, if you were not in college, because it was considered a community for people in colleges to communicate, and that's how we would be like, hey, who's going to the basketball game today, or the soccer game, or this event's happening. That's the stuff that we would use it for. So it was to build communities on campus. So as that progressed, because even when I was in law school, I still had to use my .edu, but then that's when I started to open it up. And then you start to see family members and grandparents and aunts and uncles, and then everything started to change. And it became this platform to where people who did not have a voice before had a voice. So it was like, all right, this is starting to change a little bit. It's different. Because before that, we had MySpace, and we had Zanga, and all the good stuff. There were like these little blogs, and then it became this beast that it is, and social media and Facebook, they bought Instagram, and then they're doing all this stuff, and it's just becoming this huge monster. And what its original intent was to bring people together. What it has been used now has been almost weaponized to a point of where it's starting to divide people. And I've watched the natural progression of it, and it's scary because here's the thing. People take a lot of things at face value. They do not research. There was a video that even happened yesterday. There was this guy who on TikTok, and he posted the video on Facebook. He says, the stimulus money that you're coming on, it's going to come out of your tax refund next year, this, and the third. And I was like, huh. So me being the lawyer that I am and the researcher, I went and pulled the bill myself. So I read the bill, I read the language, and I was like, it says it's a tax credit. I was like, so that is not actually what that means. I mean, it means it's going to reduce your taxes owed. So that way you actually get more refund next year instead of it actually being, it's a tax credit. So then I went and asked my friends who were tax attorneys and CPAs, this, that, and the third. I said, I want to make sure I'm comprehending this. So explain this. And they're like, you're correct. This is what it is. And here's the breakdown of it. So, but people were still, very intelligent people were sharing that video.
It's clickbait.
And people are, and I'm learning that what these people are doing, they're putting misinformation out there on purpose to scare people, to use fear, and what they're doing it not just to make people upset. They're doing it for the attention. And that's what's scary, is that people are intentionally misinforming other people just to get likes and views and follows. And that is scary, because I cannot fathom, to me, that's not how my mind works, about putting out intentional information that is wrong on purpose just so that people come to look at me. Because one thing, I even had an issue with this, I would say about a year ago, where I had a model who went and intentionally misrepresented who I was and what I was doing on purpose for attention. But because of who I am, because I have followed my core values, and because of my character, I had multiple people defend me and said, that is not who he is. And anybody who knows Justin personally, that's not true. Even people who I have not even spoken to or may have had a falling out with because of their character, they even defended me and say, you know what? I may have messed up with Justin in the past, but this is not who he is. That's not true. So you have to make sure that you're being your true self, because if you don't, when it comes back to it, when stuff really starts to go down, they're going to be like, oh no, I know about him in the past, and that's actually true. This, that, and third. Reputation is everything, because it takes a lifetime to build, and it takes one moment, one person, because I had to go on defense because it affected not only me personally, but it affected my business.
Cool.
Because once they start to say, oh, this person's going out and doing this, that, and third to hurt people. No, that's not true.
Yeah.
You didn't listen to me because I gave you very specific instructions, and because you wanted to do what you wanted to do, you hurt yourself.
Right.
And you would not listen. So you can't blame that on me. And I even have 4 other people who were there at the time and said, this is actually what really happened. So make sure you're protecting yourself, and make sure that you set your character up, because when it comes down to it, your character will always be your default, because people will always remember who you are, and they will always defend you, or they will go and share the information about how you made them feel.
And I think that we're a society, unfortunately, or there is a certain element to society that is all about putting people on blast, right? There's people out there that just do it just for fun, right?
They do it for the attention.
It makes me insane. If you have a problem with me, if you have a problem with my business, come to me. Let's resolve it. Let's talk about it.
And I have that in my contract.
5 other people and convoluted messages, or I say, sorry, we're like, we can't get a word in edgeways with each other. But listen, so the one thing that I always say to artists, and also to my younger sibling, is anything you do online is permanent. Even if you take it down, it's permanent, right? Don't leave nasty reviews, because if you say you submit for a gallery show, right, and it's a prestigious gallery and you've got this great opportunity, one of the first things that they are going to do is Google you. And what comes up when they Google you? Your Yelp reviews. They're going to see exactly what kind of character you are, and they're going to make a decision based on that. It's just how it works. So, sorry, that's my rant.
No, I'm a Yelp Elite member, so I get it. I'm a Yelp Elite Black. I've been for 5 years, and then I'm Gold, sorry, and then I'll be Black in another few years. But I am when I was in law school, one of my favorite classes was consumer law. I have always been the way, like, this is how you need to treat people. I grew up in a very customer service. I used to work at CVS. I used to work at Michael's. I was a cashier. I know how to do and run a store, this, that, and third. I worked for one of the best managers in my life, a guy named Bill Mullican. He passed away, I would say it's been about 10 years now. And from a brain aneurysm, just randomly. But Bill was such an inspirational figure, because that year I worked at CVS, he taught me so much about business. We had the #1 store in our region in East Texas. And I think our region spanned a few states, all about how we treated people. Every person who came through that door, we greeted. If they needed help, we walked them directly to the item and we showed it to them. It was just hey, go look over there. You give them that little personal touch. And that way, that's how they remember you. And it's all about how you make them feel. Your regular customers, you know their names. So when they came through that door and I was at that register, hey, Miss Linda, how are you today? It's good to see you. I got your cigarettes ready, blah, blah, blah. I knew it. I was on my game because that is how you build a relationship, and people love how you make them feel, and they would always come back. That's why we did so much business. So when I write my reviews, I write it from a position of like, this is how you manage. This is how you do customer service. And a lot of times I use it as a position, as a teachable moment, because that's my background. Like,
it's reasonable.
Yeah, I want to make sure, because a lot of times I've learned this, and this is something a lot of people don't understand, especially when we're working in HR. A lot of people are just ignorant about a lot of things. And I don't use the word ignorant as a derogatory. I'm using it as its true connotation. They just don't understand because they've never been taught certain things. Like, I had an issue at an auto supply store not too long ago about how I was treated. And I literally wrote the complaint and sent it into corporate. The next day I got a call from the manager, and we literally had about an hour conversation. And I explained to her, and she was like, you're exactly right, and this is how I run my store. She invited me back into the store. I spoke to the employee personally, and he was like, wow, I didn't realize what I was doing. He was like, I was just having a terrible day. And I was like, it doesn't matter. When it comes down to it, I said, that customer will always remember that one experience. I said, I was having terrible days at work, and when I was behind that counter, I always faked it. It does not matter. You always have a smile on your face. When I've even been at conception shows, it's a long day, and people don't realize when you're trying to set up and you're trying to manage and you're trying to sell and you're on your feet that long, it is tough. But what I had to do, I always kept a smile on my face, because you never know who that next person is, because that's their first impression with you, and they will always remember that. So you always keep that smile. And when I would go home, I would shut down, leave my car full of art, and I would just park it, and I would go home and sleep. And then I would take care of me the next day, because I never knew who I was going to meet. I never knew who would have that experience. And I've had some amazing people come and meet me and say, you are so inspirational just by hearing you. And because how you made me feel, I want more of you. So then they would hire me to do stuff, or they would refer me, because all about that experience. And that's what I try to tell people. So I use those moments as teaching moments, and I give people the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes you have a bad day, but if I keep coming back and it's the same situation, we got a problem.
Yeah. You know, I'm having a little trauma or a little PTSD as you're talking, because I'm thinking about, you're talking about those long days. I had to go to Houston. Well, I had to go to run the Houston and the Austin show myself in December. And it was a really rough year last year, just a ton of turbulence in the business. And, I said, okay, this is the last shows of the year. So I'm going to go out there. It was a Thursday night in Houston and a Saturday night in Austin. I'm like, this is fine. I'll just fly in, fly out, get it done. And I get to Houston on the Wednesday, and that night I get really sick, like really, really sick, like throwing up really sick. Wow. And I'm like, holy shit, like I'm out here by myself. I have to run not one show, 2 shows. You know how long those days are, 18-hour days from setup to,
clean up and shit. Yep.
There's nobody I can call.
Yep.
I'm the boss.
Yeah.
I can't call out sick. And I had to get up and I had to put that face on, and there was a lot of makeup, and, I couldn't eat during the show because I was nauseous. And I remember thinking, just please let it be over, please let it be over. But not a soul knew that I was sick. Yep. Not one single person during those shows knew that I was going through what I was going through, because you have to show up, right? You have to. I'm not encouraging anybody by any means to go out there and, if you're unwell, and put your brave face on, but sometimes
right now, don't do it. Stay home.
Definitely not right now. Definitely. I was not contagious. I was pretty sure what I was dealing with was not contagious. Yes, sometimes you just have to show up, and you have to give that best experience, because like you said, it's how you make people feel. So we've talked for literally an hour and 10 minutes without even talking about your art. So let's fix that right now. Tell me what it is what motivates you to create, and tell us about just your creative experience and how you've got to the style that you're working in today. Because I know there's been a lot of evolution in what it is that you do. You kind of bridge photography with painting, and then kind of mush those 2 things together. So just we'll tell our viewers about that.
So, when I started studio photography, So let me go ahead and do this story first because it's going to lead into everything. So I was talking about earlier how I rented my first studio. I fell in love with studio photography. And I was like, man, I need some of these lights. I need this equipment. I need to get all this stuff. And being a poor baby lawyer at the time, trying to pay back student loans, and I was like, man, I cannot afford this. One light is like $300, and I don't know if I can do this. So I am an amazing thrift store shopper. I am a thrift shop. I Facebook Marketplace, thrift stores, everything. My great aunt Mari, before she passed away, she was such an integral part of my life and my mom's life. And she was also a teacher. She was a home ec teacher. She went to finishing school, so everything she did was perfect. But she always taught us to be smart with our money. So she taught my mom how to clearance shop, and my mom taught that to me. And she also taught me how to go to thrift stores. So whenever I go do something, I love going to thrift stores. This is why this time I am a big introvert. A lot of people are like, oh my God, I can't believe it. No, I literally stay at my house. And then when I need to perform, I perform. I come home, I recoup. Thrift stores are my refuge. I love them. I will go and it's like an adventure for me. I go and find things, and a lot of the stuff that you see, I make from thrift store stuff. I find it's all secondhand and I repurpose it. So I was online looking for studio equipment, and I could not find anything to save my life. And if I did, it was super expensive. So I happened to misspell. I was on 5 Mile, the app, and I happened to misspell photography equipment. And it had a hit. And it said photography equipment, $100. And I was like, what are you talking about? So I was like, you know what? I'm curious. And I was working a weekend downtown Dallas at the time at this legal office because we were working on this huge case and they needed me. So I was sitting there and I clicked on it, and it was these 2 large gray totes. And it said, and it was nothing else. And I was like, that's kind of weird, but I'm curious. So I sent the lady a message and I said, I said, are there any strobe lights in there? And she was like, I don't know what those are. And I was like, well, can you just open up the totes and just take a few pictures and see what's in there? She goes, sure, no big deal. So she takes the pictures and she sends them to me. There are 6 strobes in there. Almost brand new. Alien bees, easily 300 to 500 a piece.
Wow.
I said, oh my God. So I was like, I am coming right now. I'm leaving work. And she lived north of Fort Worth. From downtown Dallas to north of Fort Worth was about an hour drive. I get into my truck, I leave work, and they're like, are you okay? What's going on? I said, I gotta go. I can't talk to anybody. I said, I'm sorry. And they're like out of breath. I was like, I gotta go. I said, if I miss this deal, I will never forgive myself. I was like, because I've done that in the past, and I always think about, man, I should have bought that when I didn't, but I didn't. And I was like, I gotta go. I got on the highway. I'm driving like 90 miles an hour. My heart is beating out of my chest because I was like, I need this equipment. So I get there, I get out of the truck, and I'm like, I'm here. And I'm out of breath. And she's like, calm down. It's okay. And she was like, as soon as you told me you were coming, I marked it as sold because I knew you were coming. I told her, I was like, I've had stuff sold from underneath me. It was like first come, first serve. So if you don't get there, you lose an opportunity. So she takes me into the garage, and she's like, and I look at the equipment, and it is a full studio. 6 backdrops, stands for lights and backdrops, extension cords, the 6 alien bees, umbrellas, soft boxes, diffusers, stands, everything you can imagine to run a full photography business was there.
Wow.
For $100. And I said, oh my God. And she says, hold on, let me explain this to you. Because she said, this is very important. She says, my father was a traveling photographer. He went around, he was a member of the Shriners Club. And he would go around to local daycares and children's hospitals, and he would take pictures of children. He did it for years. He died in 2014. She goes, I've had this stuff in my garage for 2 years because I couldn't depart with it because it was my father's memory. She goes, something told me to put it online right now because the person who's supposed to do something great with this is coming. And they're going to use this equipment to make some amazing things in this world. And that person is you.
Oh,
she goes, I don't know how much this equipment is worth. She goes, this is almost $5,000 to $10,000 worth of equipment.
Wow.
I'm giving it to you for $100 because you're supposed to do something amazing with it. I literally was in tears yet again. So I was just like, are you serious? And literally that's how I knew that was the moment I knew this is what my mission was. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I got the equipment home. I'm like on cloud nine. I'm trying to figure it out. I taught myself how to use it all. I literally spent weeks putting it together, figuring out how to work everything. And then I just started doing shoots. My other best friend, she is a kindred nomadic spirit like myself, Yancina Marinero. She lives outside of Dallas, and she has always been one of my biggest supporters. And when I was going through some hard times, I lived with her for 3 months because she was like, you're like my family. So don't worry about anything. I just want to help you get where you need to be. So she reached out to me and she was like, your photography is good, but you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm taking pictures. She goes, yeah, it's nice. But she's like, you're like everybody else. That's not who you are. You're not supposed to be like everybody else. And I said, well, what am I supposed to be doing? She goes, you need to take more risks. You need to go off a little bit more, and you need to start doing stuff a little bit differently. So I started adding more props, doing a little bit more wild stuff with my photography. She goes, man, you're getting there, but you're not still doing what you're supposed to do. I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, I cannot tell you. She goes, you need to figure it out. So after 3 months of going through this and her telling me no, I got so frustrated. I walked into Michael's and I just bought paint, and something said, just buy paint and just go at it. So I bought a bunch of crap paint and I was just like, I'm just going to paint people, whatever. I don't care. So I did my research. I was like, okay, how does this paint work with people? This, that, and the third. I was like, all right, this is good. That, and the third. Figured it all out. And I just started painting people. And then this is where, I don't know if you can see it. This Living Graffiti. Yep. That was the first one I ever did. And literally, model, his name is Evan O'Neill out of Austin. He came in from Austin to Houston, to Dallas, and I painted him. And for 10 years, I did not compete at the State Fair, Texas, because I was terrified. I put myself in competitions every year for photography and art because I need to stay on my toes. And I need to make sure I'm growing and I'm evolving. That's the reason why that picture behind me right there is very important, and so is that one. I did not enter the State Fair because if you do not place, they tell you, come pick up your stuff. We do not even show it. Sorry, thank you for attempt, but you're not good enough. Only the winners get shown, and that's honorable mention, third place, up to first, and then best of show. So for 10 years, I didn't do it. I would enter local shows, and I did okay. But I was like, I'm not ready for that level of rejection. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a chance. So I entered 9 pieces in every category that I could that year. This is back in 2017. And I got my letter and it said, you need to come pick up your work. And I was like, oh. I got the letter and I read it and it said, all of your work has been returned except for one. What? The piece behind me, I'll pick it up in a minute, Living Graffiti. Not only did it win first place in the professional and teacher division in the state of Texas, so every person who teaches photography and every professional photography in the entire state, it won first place and also won best of show. My first time competing. The next year, the piece behind me called Pride, it's a guy named Mickey. He was in the Army and he came out, and then this was his coming out portrait.
Wow. He
drove down from North Dakota to Dallas to come shoot with me. That piece won yet again the next year, best of show and first place at the State Fair. That's and awesome. Then I had another piece, the Golden King, which is right there. That piece also won first place. So they tied, but this one beat it out to win best of show. So I took both categories of every professional photographer and teacher in the state 2 years in a row.
Wow.
Last year I got lazy, entered a piece. It's still a beautiful piece, but I only got second place. So I took that as, Justin, it's time to get back on your game. So I've been using this time to cultivate, to develop new ideas. I cannot tell you the stuff I have going through my head right now because I have so many ideas, and I was like, I need to get a hold of people because I need to make stuff, because this is what I do. I use this time as my gauge, and that goes back to me always the anti-mediocre. I don't want to be a part of the pack. I want to lead the pack. I want to train people to think differently, to cultivate their art, because I take different genres of art and I smash them together. Because when people see my stuff, they're so confused because they're like, is this photography or is this painting or is it body art? I'm like, it's everything. And they don't get it because it's not what traditional art is. And I've gotten such a negative reception, especially from a lot of artists, because I don't play by the rules per se. And I was like, isn't that the purpose of art, to not play by the said rules and to make people think and to grow? But they don't get that because they're still conditioned to think this is what it's supposed to be. This is how you do it. But I want to break free of that. I want to change my art to where it's to a point of where it's so different and it's such on the leading edge to where it's starting to create, literally I created my own genre, and it's called Selcouth Meraki. And it's something that Selcouth Meraki. And
Selcouth Meraki. Okay, break it down.
My website, justinokeefe.com.
Let me put the website in the comments here so people can check it out. And just a side note, Justin actually paints the people in person. So that wasn't clear. He's painting them in person, like body painting, and then taking the photographs. So Justin O, and then let me see your t-shirt so I can make sure I spell your name right.
Keith.
Perfect. .com, right? All right. So right there in the comments, folks, if you want
Here's the fun thing. I actually invented Selcouth Meraki at my first conception art show in Dallas.
No way.
Yep. So a lady came in. Apparently she said that I don't even remember her name. She came into my show. I had a booth right there at the front when you walked into the brewery. And she goes, this is something I have never seen before. And she goes, what is it that you do? She goes, what is Justin O'Keefe? And I tried to explain to her. She goes, no. Because you can ask anybody in the Dallas art community who I am. They know who I am. And this is one of those moments where you meet somebody just for a moment and then they disappear because they're going to teach you a lesson. And she was sitting there at my booth and she goes, what you are doing is so different and so groundbreaking is that it's not a traditional genre of art. You have invented something new and you need to give it a name. And I was like, well, I don't know what to, she was like, it's going to come to you, but it's going to take time. So my best friend, Brent, he was at the show at the same time with me. And for months, we went back and forth. What is this called? What is it? So then he was like, what about Selcouth Meraki? Look it up. And I was like, what are you talking about? So Selcouth, let me pull up my website because I want to make sure I got it exactly right. Because I will be telling people the wrong stuff, and that is something I do not want to do. So enter site. I even have a whole page with the definition, everything. So Selcouth means unfamiliar, rare, strange, yet marvelous. Meraki, the soul, creativity, or love put into something. The essence of yourself that is put into your work. So.
What language is it in?
It's English. They're English words. They're both English.
Really?
Oh. So what it comes down to is that I take the human form, the human body, and I make it into something because it's something that's familiar. But I make it so marvelous, so different, so strange, but it still is familiar to people. That's what draws people in because they're like, this is a person, but this is not how we usually interpret a person. Because I can't paint on a canvas. Like I've tried, I don't like it. It doesn't feel right. So then the Meraki is the soul or the essence. When I create a piece of art, I put so much of myself into it. That's the reason, like I said, like it's like making a child with another person. What comes out of it is something, it's a collaborative effort. So I make sure that my essence that I put into it, because by the time I get done, I am exhausted because I've put so much mentally and physically, I literally go to sleep because I have to recover. So this is what I'm putting into my work. So I've developed, that's the reason why, like even for this mannequin behind me, it's a person, it's the human form. The gas mask that I made a couple years ago, which I used for a shoot about a month ago before the pandemic happened. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is actually pretty relevant. It's also based on the human form. I've gotten to the point now, I don't know if you can see it. Let me pick this up right quick, but I'm starting to paint and design. These are old leather jackets I get from the thrift store. They're probably about $5, $10. And then paint them, seal them, and they're all wearable pieces of art now. And I put my logo back and everything. So instead of me, because I don't have access to people now, what I am doing is still being able to use the human form, So I paint these custom jackets, things like that. I have clients who buy them, and because they're all originals. And one day my goal is to paint pieces of custom jackets, shirts, underwear, stuff like that, and have them like mass produced. I would love to see like my stuff at Target, so people can still have art and still be affordable. Like I would love for my prints to be mass produced, so I can see kids like hanging them in their dorm rooms, and they're like, "Man, I love this stuff." I may not be able to afford like the major stuff, but I can still have amazing pieces of art to where it's still accessible. And people like, because I just feel like these pieces are so inspirational, because this piece is actually the one behind me, the Pride piece was actually the focus of Houston. I got into for Pride last year in Houston. So I had a show at City Hall, downtown Houston. And this has become the piece that is going to be put into the Legacy Center here in Houston, which is the LGBT community center where they do medical care and things like that. And it's going to be in their lobby, and it's going to be blown up. It's going to be massive. And that is going to be the piece, because his story about him coming out and being proud about who he is can inspire so many people to live in their truth and to tell their own different story. So that's what I want to do. Each of these pieces has a story about what that person was going through, because all of them are custom tailored to fit what's going on. I can shoot you one day and you're going through this, and it's completely different than what we would do the next day, because it changes, because it could be happy, it could be sad, it could be depression. Whatever a person's going through is embodied in that piece of art, and it's telling a story.
Very, very cool. So if anyone has any questions for Justin, now would be an awesome time to chime in. We're going to go through a couple of these comments. All right, so let me see. I'm going to go right back to the beginning. John wants to know, what is the art market like where you are right now?
Houston's very different. In Dallas, I would say it was a lot better, and my work was received. Dallas is still a very conservative market. Let me say it. Texas is a very conservative market. What I do is considered, if you don't see that behind me, other side, Justin, unapologetically provocative. When I started, I had a model tell me, I cannot follow you because your work is too provocative. And I said, cool. And it offended me at first. And then everything that I see as a negative, my ability is that I flip it and I make it into something that's positive and inspiring. My work is unapologetically provocative, because it's going to make people, no matter what you think, what you feel, who you are, it's going to make you stop. And it's going to provoke a reaction. I can't tell you how many people have come by to the booths, especially a conception show, and their faces will be like, oh my. And one lady literally clutched her pearls, and she was, oh my God. And I was just like,
move along. You're not welcome here.
And then I've had people who literally have been like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this before. But no matter who you are, it's still going to make you stop, and it's going to provoke a response. And that's what it's designed to do. So the market here in Houston, I can't tell you how many grants, I can't tell you how many shows, how many mentorships, everything I have applied for and have been rejected from, left and right. And it was tough the past 2 years, because I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing differently that is making me, it's giving me such a negative response, and I could not figure it out. And for the life of me, I'm just like, okay, I'm doing everything. I'm still remaining true to myself. And that's something that's always important to me. I have to stay true. And not everybody's going to get it. And not everybody is a trendsetter. They're trend followers. And I'm okay with that. So it could take a few more years, and then I will be the rate. Like when I left Dallas, that's when I really got popular in Dallas. When I lived there, when I left, because then they couldn't have me. You can't have something and it's not close. Then they're like, keep coming back. I can't tell you how many people in Dallas want me to come shoot now, because they're like, please come back, because they have access. You don't know what you got until it's gone. But the market is different.
So this is more of a comment. This one, it says, one day at a time. This is from Jan Phillips. One day at a time is still an opportunity to make each day count. And at the end of the day, this is an ideal time in our life journey to ask ourselves, did I empower someone today, and how was I empowered?
Yes.
Dynamite advice. We were talking about that right at the beginning of this session. Hi, Ray. Ray says, "Oh my God, I love you both. We love you both back, Ray. You have to look up Ray's work. She's phenomenal."
No, I met her at the Conception show.
Oh, there we go. In Houston.
That's how we met, and we've been following each other since that day. So believe me.
Awesome. Ray, we need to get you on the show. So get it together.
Amazing. Out there in Big Spring, Texas. I know. Yeah, it's beautiful.
And then Heather McCarty said, "Tears, fierce mama." Yep, talking about your wonderful mom. You want to give a little shout out to your mom?
My good old mom, Pamela Lawrence in Jefferson, Texas, down there. Like I said, she's a home health nurse. She actually cares for pediatric patients who aren't able to take care of themselves. So she works for a home health agency where they go into the homes of these kids who have different autoimmune diseases, deformities, things like that. And she is their primary caregiver 24/7. So she, her little boy she's working with now, I think he's about like 5 or 6. No, I think he's 8 because she goes to the elementary school. She literally goes to school with him every day.
Wow.
But since everything is out, so she's literally with him every day to make sure he's been taken care of. So that's what mom does.
Shout out to you, mama. All right. Lori Lipsy says, "So happy that I was able to hear this. Awesome. Awesome." Suzanne, sorry I joined late. What's the artist name? We already covered that one. All right. So folks, if you want to learn more about Justin and his amazing work, JustinO'Keefe.com. Justin, you want to leave any last thoughts with our viewers?
So I would say a couple things. Also, I'm available on Instagram, Justin O'Keefe Creative, and Twitter, everything. If you go to my website, there's links to everything, Facebook, all that good stuff. And like I said, for my last thoughts, I'll do a couple things. First thing, like I said, just I tell people this all the time. Just be a good person. The reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is that I want to inspire people to get back to the things that we're missing. We've grown a lot, especially technologically, but we got to get back to the people and figure out who we are and talk to your neighbors. Talk to your friends. Yeah. Let's keep social distance. But once everything, because we live in a society where we're so technical, like we feel everything's technology. We don't even know who lives across the street from us. So figure out who those people are, build your communities, and instead of trying to divide and be upset and angry and attack people, before you do that, think, is this enriching not only myself, but society? What am I doing to help the collective good and to help other people grow and myself? If this is not helping me grow and it's not helping someone else grow, then I'm not going to do it. Because we live in a world full of strife, full of anger, full of people trying to tear each other down every day. And you could literally spend your time bringing light into the world and inspiring someone else. You have no idea who you can inspire to be better, and that you could launch someone's career and make them be a better person. So spend that time, think about everything that you do to make things better. And one last thing I want to do. I want to introduce everybody to the gremlins.
Oh, let me get my gremlin. Come on, gremlin.
All right, babies, it's your time to shine.
Yeah.
Ready? Come on.
All right, a special treat today. We got our little French guys making an appearance. This is Frankie.
So this is the diva with her pearls.
Oh, look.
Say hello. This is Gia Marie.
I think they would probably get more attention on this show than we should just leave them on camera for the next hour. What do you think, Frank?
So this little one, and her brother, well, I'm going to show him. She actually was a model for Chewy.com. So she was on their website. So she had a photo shoot.
Oh, my goodness.
And she is such a diva. After an hour, she was done. And she told everybody she would not tolerate it anymore. Right, Mama?
Oh.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Oh, what a cutie pie.
And then here's her brother. Come on, Mr. J. Come here, buddy. Up. Yeah. Come show everybody your pimp chain. Oh, hey, Mr. Jackson.
My goodness. Mr. Jackson. This was a very special end to an awesome episode of Coffee with Artists. So thank you, folks, for tuning in. I hope everybody enjoyed our little guest appearances at the end here. And Justin, thank you for being so open and candid. And
of course,
look forward to keeping up with your many adventures.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
We'll be back tomorrow.
Bye.